Well, hello and welcome to today's webinar. I am Mark Graben, your host, a senior advisor with KaiNexus, and today's webinar is titled Unlock the Power of Leadership, the Electrolux Manufacturing System Way. I'm very excited that we are joined, coming to us from Italy, our presenter, Sandro Casagrande. If it's your first time attending one of our webinars, just want to tell you briefly about KaiNexus. We are a software company. We are an enterprise platform designed to drive continuous improvement and transformation across organizations. We are happy and thrilled that Electrolux is one of our customers. To learn more about who we are and what we do, please visit our website at www.kainexus.com. For those in attendance today who are KaiNexus customers or talking to us about becoming customers, I want to let you know that our 10th annual KaiNexicon user conference is scheduled for April 15th to 17th, 2026. It's always a great event. I will be there. Many of our customers and the entire KaiNexus team and some other speakers will be there. If you'd like to learn more and go ahead and register, please go to kainexus.com/KaiNexicon. Okay, so let me introduce today's presenter more formally. With over 30 years of hands-on experience in lean methodologies, Sandro Casagrande has built a distinguished career driving operational excellence at Electrolux. His lean journey began in 1994, when early exposure to total quality management set the foundation for his commitment to continuous improvement. During 12 years at the Solero dishwasher plant, he held diverse roles in R&D and purchasing. It was instrumental in the first pilot activities for the Electrolux Manufacturing System, or EMS, even before its official 2005 launch. So yes, 20 years on this journey, as we're going to hear about today. After joining the first EMS change agent training, Sandro progressed through key roles as EMS sponsor and coordinator for Italy and Europe. This journey culminated in him becoming the first Italian to achieve EMS Master Gear level certification at Electrolux. Building on this expertise, he co-led EMS implementation in new acquisition plants in Egypt. And since 2017, Sandro has been co-leading the global EMS digitalization. Today, as the group methodology and documentation leader, he coordinates EMS activities across all business areas. So Sandro, honored and thrilled that you're here and sharing with us today. Let me go ahead and turn things over to you.
Thank you, Mark. So thank you for the super introduction, right? Very happy also from my side to be joining this session, right? And so this year is a special year for us, celebrating the 20 years of the program. And so I think we are very happy then to share a little bit of our experiences and then particularly in the area of leadership, right? So let me see if we can move. Seems doesn't moving, Mark.
I think you have control of the mouse.
Okay, now
hopefully it'll keep working for you to advance it.
No, the point may be that there is more people connected and then there is a little bit of more delay, right? So Today we'll talk about the power of leadership, right? And what was one of our biggest lessons learned over this journey, right? So looking to the main contents, it's very, very low. Okay. So looking to the main content, so we will have a quick information about our company and then some introduction about our EMS system. Then we will talk about what we call EMS way, where we started, what is the model, and then we'll get into what we call leadership processes and leadership behaviors. And finally, sharing a little bit the process that we follow to develop these leadership processes and behaviors in our leaders, right? So let's start with a small video for our company.
We wake up, billions of us. We step out of bed, thinking it's too early. We make coffee. We wash. We dry. We try to put something nice on. We cook. We experiment. We take chances. We make schedules work. We solve problems, and we make new plans. We work hard. We make the most with what we have, and we try to find meaning. How billions of people live has great impact on our future. It's all of the everyday things that, if made better, have the power to improve both quality of life and the world around us. We want to shape a better living. This ambition is embodied in everything we do, and has been for a century. It's in every idea, every product, and every interaction. It's about making outstanding taste experiences available to everyone. Rethinking fabric care to make clothes look and feel new for longer. It's about providing a safer and healthier home climate. About making the everyday into a better experience. At Electrolux, we are committed to drive a real change for people and for the health of our planet.
Right. So shape living for the better is the purpose of our company, right? And then our mission is to reinvent lifetime taste, care, and well-being experiences for more enjoyable and sustainable living around the world. And our strategic drivers are act sustainably, create better experience, and always improve. We are, Electrolux Group is a leading global appliance company. So we have 41,000 employees distributed in the different sites. We are serving 120 markets, and we had last year 136 billion SEK in sale. So it's a quite big company. Main product lines are taste, care, and well-being, as you were recognizing in the video. And our main brands are Electrolux, AEG, and Frigidaire. Some information about how we are distributed, right? So we have R&D centers distributed in many different areas between Europe, Australia, Brazil, US. We have some design centers. We have offices in basically all the different continents, and we have 34 factories distributed between Europe, Thailand, Australia, Latin America, and North America. So quite an extended company with the possibility to exchange ideas with a lot of different cultures in different countries. Let's talk a little bit about our Electrolux Manufacturing System. And so we'd like to invite you also to see, in this case, a very small video we prepared for our 20 years anniversary.
This is EMS.
So really also ideally welcoming you for the 20 years celebration, right? So the system was born, as we said, 20 years ago, and it was born as a global program directly, right? So the reason for that was that Electrolux was coming from an history of growing by acquisition. And so in those years, the situation was a lot of different way of working, a lot of different visual standards, a lot of different metrics to be used, right? And there was a real need to create a one Electrolux vision, right? And this program was then starting with that, with key messages of defining and the good practice that we had, right? So then inspiring from outside, experiments mainly from the automotive area, right? And then also using some good practices that we were having in the different countries, that companies that we were then embedding in the group, right? And so it was born like this to let's understand what would be from now on the vision of One Electrolux, right? So that we created a model, and then we started to then share and spread this model in the different countries, right? And actually the deployment was quite fast, because we'll say we started in 2005, and in 2007, 2008 already it was launched in all the different sites at that moment present in the group, right? And so definitely was born as a long life potentially program, right? And so then we are happy that we were able to continue this initial expectation and furtherly develop, right? So this is our latest version of, we are describing our strategy, right? So through this kind of house with a clear vision of strive for zero losses, clear goals about zero safety incidents, zero quality defects, zero cost weight, zero missed deliveries, and all the people engaged, right? We are defining and some clear ways to set the foundation so they are solid, to build on that, to implement some conditions on manufacturing process, material handling and logistics, and strategy deployment and leadership and engagement to be a regular condition. Is exactly what we'll talk today, right? So how leadership and engagement is becoming a habit, right? And then the foundation is the base for our next continuous improvement activity and our continuous effort also to reinforce the culture, right? And we will see today also in the last part of the presentation, the development that we continue to do, right? So this is kind of overall framework. Behind the framework, there is a panel of methodologies and tools and routines that we follow, right? So again, you recognize here conditions and activities, and then let's say a different panel of tools or ways of working that we are adding and developing step by step based on good practices that we identify inside the company and outside, continuously evolving the system to be more updated with the business challenges. Our principles are quite simple. So leadership and alignment. Our factories are also quite complex environment, right? Both from the process and then for the, let's say, different organizations that are inside, and also with the challenges and a lot of flexibility in the product range that makes our processes also complex to be managed, right? So leadership and alignment is a key element. Go and see is a key behavior we want to develop the people, and then on the processes, embed the quality in the process as much as possible, continuously improve through the PDCA, make the value flow, and create and maintain standards as the foundation for next steps for the improvement. Encourage a culture where we make the problem visible and not hide them, right? Because let's say if we are openly discuss and work on the problems, then there are more possibility that we have, let's say, a better way to run our sites, right? And finally, then reduce the variation. Let's talk about what the origins about what we call now EMS way, right? So some background information, right? So we refer here to maybe a study you have been seeing about Cardiff University. What happens to the company that are starting to run, let's say, continuous improvement workshop or to start to implement a lean journey, right? So everybody has the first initial improvement, right? So they're often supported also by consultants or whatever. And then when the event is finished, nothing happened. And after time, that we are going back to the original situation, right? So this is happening. Then there are companies that after the first workshop, they are still taking a little bit of time to finish the improvement activity that were not already completed during the workshop, and then nothing else happens. So again, it's just delayed in the moment in time, but then we are going to go back and maybe get a little bit better level in the beginning, but losing a majority of the benefit, right? Then we have companies that are good in defining standards, right? So we do the workshop, we define the standard, we are able to maintain them, so that then it's already a good level, right? Because we are not regressing, right? Then some other ones are doing a little bit of more step after the initial workshop, so they complete the activity and then they maintain the standards. And finally, the A class are the one that do the workshop, maintain, continue to keep the standard, but also continue to have the engagement of the teams to continue to do the continuous improvement on daily basis, step by step, right? And so this is kind of, we knew about these things, so we wanted to organize a system and a program that would allow us to do that, right? So what was our lean journey implementation, right? So the first part, we were calling that re-engineering, right? So we are taking some areas, implementing all the concept and creating the model area for everybody to get practice and see potential, right? In the meantime, we are doing some training for the management team. These activities were run by external experts with some consultants and involving some internal people, and then some guys to be furtherly developed in the future, like change agents or EMS coordinators. So that was the starting point, right? Soon after that, we continue to run the step of stability, where we were running some specific big workshop called masterclasses. They were events, Kaizen weeks, right, with a specific focus. And still they were run by external experts, but they were a playground for our change agents and coordinators to start getting more into the applications in a little bit wider scale, right? And then, so in the meantime, we were developing our internal change agents. Then the third phase, the one of the sustainability, so we were cascading the knowledge, developing our team leaders and training them, right? And then starting to have the change agents leading a smaller scale improvement, still events, a little bit smaller scale. And so we did that step, right? And then finally developing more and supporting more and developing our team leader, we were aiming to reach the last phase on the right, that is the daily continuous improvement, right? So this was the plan. And actually, we were going through these stages step by step, maybe with different speeds, but in all the different sites. Then the journey to the sustainable continuous improvement is often described with a chart like this, right? So we're starting point, there is a lot of instability, right? The performance of a process are not repeatable. We go up and down, and then it's not very clear what will be the performance tomorrow, right? So we are starting in that condition, and then when focusing on the standards and creating the standards, because at the beginning maybe they are not available, right? So create these things, this standard, and start to use it, right? Then it's bringing us to the second phase, that is the one of the standardization, where we try to maintain this standard and maintain the process repeatable, right? And finally, when we are confident that we are able to maintain, then the third phase, where we start to do small steps, step-by-step improvement, that is the sustainable continuous improvement going beyond the current state, right? So these are the key stages. And we develop a process that we have for evaluating the progress of our sites. So we call it site certification process, and is a combination about utilization of tool methodologies connected to the business plan deployment, so to the business need from one side, spreading and progressing the development, the culture. And then the third pillar is about having the site achieving some specific levels for some defined KPIs in safety, quality, and cost and delivery. And according to let's say the status of the situation of the processes and on the culture in the site, we are then assigning the different level of certification, right, from bronze to platinum. So that's the kind of background, right? And so, as I said, we were doing all the training, we were doing all the development, we learned how to use these lean methodologies, we developed people, right? And then in 2014, we were starting to look, right? So what is happening there, right? So because we launched the program, as we said, in 2005, and then we did all that effort that I'm describing. We did the training, we did, let's say, the development of these more qualified guys and taking the cascading the knowledge, developing a team leader. We did all these things, right? But after basically 9 years, the picture in terms of our assessment was something that was not encouraging, right? So only 3 sites were reaching the gold level and only 1 was reaching the platinum, right? So then we are working hard for 9 years, but we don't have consistent level of achievement in all the different sites, right? So there is something else that is missing, right? And then we did some reflection, and finally we came to another important conclusion, right? That is that what is making the real difference is the leadership, meaning how the leaders are interacting with their teams, right? Which routines they follow and which behavior they are adopting when they are executing the routine, right? So we were having some sites where this interaction was very positive, and this site were able to progress, right? But then in other cases, that part was missing, right? So then the point was we want then to create an evolution of our system, of our program, that is, will be able to create organizational habits, right? We don't want just a single case management. We want to find a way that will work potentially in all our sites, right? And then so we started to enter more in the logic and let's say in the mood of the science of habit building, right? And that it's difficult, right? So because I mean, when we think about creating habits or changing habits of people, this is very, very difficult, because when we speak about people, instead we are talking about individuals, right? And each individual has own way to learn, own way, own habits, right? And then it's not a simple thing to try to create some shared habits and promoting the habits to be more and more used within the site, right? So then we found very useful this book, The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg, that is kind of painting this kind of loop, the cue, routine, reward, that it's was seeming to be interesting, and then we wanted to practice, right? And then so starting from the last one, so the reward, right? So when we want to, let's say, invite someone to change a habit, I think the starting point is to understand what's going to change for that person. What's the reward? Why is that going to be better, right? So what do we gain if we are following this routine, right? Then it comes the routine, right? So to define what are the things we would like to happen, right? And the third thing is then what's the cue, what's the signal, right? When should be the moment or the right opportunity for me to start adopting that routine, right? So that's design the routine starting from the benefit, right? So this is already a starting point that we learn, right? So then we started to rethink our processes and our ways of working according to this concept. And then there was another point, how to make this systematic, right? Because we want to have these routines being shared in all, and then potentially in all our teams, in all our sites with the time, right? And so how can we be able to engage in a systematic way leaders and teams on daily continuous improvement in a sustainable way? So we need repetition, right? We need ways of working, and we need iteration. We need a repeated exercise, right? So we need kata. And then it was very useful for us to go through the quite famous Toyota Kata book from Mike Rother that was inspiring the backbone of this approach, right? There is a third element that was important for us to to get familiar with. That is the concept of neuroplasticity, right? And then I'd like to share just a small video on this that I think is quite powerful in terms of setting the stage for the next steps.
Not so long ago, many scientists believed that the brain did not change after childhood, that it was hardwired and fixed by the time we became adults. But recent advances in only the last decade now tell us that this is simply not true. The brain can and does change throughout our lives. It is adaptable, like plastic. Hence, neuroscientists call this neuroplasticity. How does neuroplasticity work? If you think of your brain as a dynamic, connected power grid, there are billions of pathways or roads lighting up every time you think, feel, or do something. Some of these roads are well-travelled. These are our habits, our established ways of thinking, feeling, and doing. Every time we think in a certain way, practice a particular task, or feel a specific emotion, we strengthen this road. It becomes easier for our brains to travel this pathway. Say we think about something differently, learn a new task, or choose a different emotion. We start carving out a new road. If we keep travelling that road, our brains begin to use this pathway more, and this new way of thinking, feeling, or doing becomes second nature. The old pathway gets used less and weakens. This process of rewiring your brain by forming new connections and weakening old ones is neuroplasticity in action. The good news is that we all have the ability to learn and change by rewiring our brains. If you have ever changed a bad habit or thought about something differently, you have carved a new pathway in your brain and experienced neuroplasticity firsthand. With repeated and directed attention towards your desired change, you can rewire your brain.
So the key of the repetition of the things, right? So it's not that just when we have a new idea or a new thing, we just tell to the guys, this is a new thing we should follow, and people follow, right? So that's not, it doesn't going to work, right? So then based on these three elements, then we created our EMS way model, right? So we are talking about leadership processes that are generating the routine and the structure, right? And then routines need to be repeated and executed in a consistent way, day after day, right? And on the other side, are important the leadership behavior, right? Because I can repeat the routine, but if I don't have the proper approach, I'm not going to have a good result, right? So the behaviors are the ones that are influencing the quality and the success of the routine, right? And basically, this is then the full model of our EMS way, our leadership management system. So on the left side, you see our leadership processes, and on the right side, the leadership behavior, right? And then we will go through these elements in the next moment. So let's start from the processes, right? So let's think about, we saw before the strategy model, right? So then let's think which routines are supporting that, right? So when we think about the strategies of the Hoshing process, our leadership processes are the BPD and the operational communication. When we think about activities, then we have the current target condition, where together we define what is the scope, the purpose of this particular improvement activity, and what we want to improve, right? And then the quick PDCA or rapid PDCA as a way to move forward to try to achieve the target condition, right? The third one is conditions, right? So we have a process, we have standards, so we have visual management, right? So we are using these things to make routines being established and then maintained, right? And the key role we have as a leader standard work that is allowing to bring all these things together, right? There is one missing element, which is maybe the most important one, that is the coaching. And we are developing the capability for leaders to be coached, and we coach the Hoshing process, we coach the activities, and we coach the conditions. In all the three areas, the coaching has a fundamental impact. let's see. And of course, we want the coaching to become standard, right? So to become a standard habit, an organizational habit. So this need to be embedded in the leader standard work. So let's see what we mean, right, with the coaching the strategy, right? So when we create the plan, the business plan for the year, it's good we engage the team in generating the plan, right? It's not the leader deciding which are the actions and then communicating to the team and the others should follow, right? So engaging the team in creating the plan is the way to reinforce the goal alignment and the commitment, and also a way to offer the team the possibility to propose the activities that we call method, right? And so it's a way to develop the people, right? And then in that case, the role of the coach is to challenge the business plan, right? Is it the best possible one? Are we able to execute it? Do we have the right skills to be able to run it, right? So this is when we think about the plan, right? Then we have the review every month, right? And then we go through the process of seeing how the plan is progressing, right? And then we keep the focus on the process, right? So are we able to execute our activities? Are these activities delivering the expected impact? Yes or no, right? So think about focus on the means more than on the result, right? And always challenge, is this plan that we created at the beginning of the year still the best one? The world is changing, the business is changing, right? So do we need to keep our plan still the same, or do we have opportunity to make it better, right? So this is the kind of challenging from the coach, right? And also provoking reflection, right? So something didn't work, right? So what can we do different? How can we work in a different way as a team, right? So that is kind of reflecting from eventual failures is the way to develop and more the team and the way the team is collaborating, right? So these are kind of example of strategy coaching. Condition coaching. I mentioned about visual factory, right? We all know about that. So, and then this cue routine reward mechanism is perfect to evaluate the consistency of our visual management routine, right? So, I mean, we need that when we have a certain signal, we are generating a certain reaction, but not any reaction. We want a specific reaction to be executed in case the signal is open, right? And that is the perfect way to design it, is that starting from what's the benefit, right? When people knows what's the benefit, if they follow the routine, then it's more, let's say, likely that when the signal is going to be called, people will follow, right? And then our visual management routine will become sustainable, right? The second perspective that we learn is this one, right? So if you are a leader, try to put yourself in the shoes of the person that is leading a team reporting to you, right? And visit the area, go and see, stay there, and think about, if you would be the leader of this team here, what should I know to run my business properly, right? And do I have visual aids that help me to have that information in a simple way? This is opening a completely new perspective about reevaluating the existing visual management system we put in place and adapt it and develop them according to the changes that we have in the process, right? So this is how conditions are moved, right? The next phase is we have what we call leader check process. We have a layer audit system, right? And then so leaders are engaged on daily or weekly, depending on the different levels, right, in audits. And these management audits are an opportunity, definitely are an investment of time, right? So we dedicate time, and so we should get the benefit out of it, right? So, but from a leader, we have the opportunity to transfer energy and to provide and encouraging the teams to generate improvement, right? So it's not just visiting the area, follow a checklist and say, this is good, this is bad, right? So it's discuss, it have coaching and feedback to the team and engage them to think about next level of the improvement, right? And also, we depending on what are the findings during the audit, we can decide to go for a coaching for correction or go more for a coaching for development, right? So there are different ways to adopt and execute the coaching in, let's say, developing the conditions. The third one about the activities is the classic, let's say, coaching kata that is supporting the improvement kata, right? So, I mean, this is I think many of you will be familiar with this logic. We are following this methodology, which was a game changer for us, right? And the point is that the coaching is not only in this last phase where the team is iterating toward the target condition, right? With the coaching cycles, the 5-question card. It's not only that. The activity of the coach starts before, aligning the team on the direction, right? So how this activity is supporting the business, right? And then work together to understand more that process and the condition of the process, and establish together the target condition for the team. So setting targets together is also a way to coach and develop the team, right? So these are all elements of how we use the coaching on the activities, right? And then the leader standard work, as I discussed before, is a kind of glue, right? Is making all these things together. And what we learn to do is that we just not only use it as a checklist. I had this task to do and I did it, right? We try to apply what we call critical review, right? So we reflect, we take some notes and we reflect, okay, we were planning to run this session, like let's say an EMS way coaching session. We do it, fine. Then are we happy about that? So was my behavior correct in the session? And am I happy about the result of the session, right? This is taking some notes, and then each leader can review the comments and make things to change and be more effective by doing the modification of the leader standard work, right? So this is also a continuous evolution on that. Let's think now about the behavior, right? Because I mean, we can have very good routines, but if we have the wrong attitude or wrong behavior, the routines are not enough. So first one is goal alignment. So it's very important that leaders are sharing goals in a clear way, that they are sharing their expectation, right? Being specific, right? So my expectation for this area, that is, we are going to have these and these and these conditions, help the team to visualize what are the conditions that you expect to see in the future, right? And then give the priority and adapt the priority during the different sessions that we have, right? So what's the right thing to do in this particular moment for this particular team, right? What's the priority for this team in this moment? Then it's the second one is process and result. And the key message is the right process will produce the right result. Our job as leader is to be sure that we have right processes. They are robust. That's our job. We need to develop a culture where our processes are improved and then maintained, but to be the most effective, right? And to do that, there is no other way than go and visit them, stay there, observe the process, go and see, use facts, talk about the facts with the team, right? So analyze the performance based on facts that we see, right? So don't talk about who is doing the things not in the wrong way, but think when there is some deviation from the expected result, try to understand and look back to the process, right? And make the process better. The third one, back to the standards, right? So, I mean, standards are the key one. If there is no standard, we cannot understand if we are improving or not, right? But then, so we should encourage the creation, then we should encourage the revision, right? And then we need to make sure that people is following, right? Because we can have fantastic standards and nobody is following, right? Then we only created paper, right? And then if we have the best standards in the world on paper, or even now digitalized on the visual screens, but nobody's following, then we are just wasting time, right? And on the contrary, when we are auditing the standards and we might sometimes find some deviation, let's understand, let's talk to the people. Often we discover that there is a better way to do the things, right? And so that's the right moment to thank the people and to modify and improve the standards, right? So it's not that there are, by definition, if you don't follow the standard, you are doing a wrong thing, right? So let's understand, right? Let's refresh. Maybe it's a problem of missing training, or is it simply a problem that there is a better way of doing it we didn't know? Next one, question and challenge. So lean leadership is developed on leader making people growing by asking questions more than telling statements, right? And then also challenge the process, challenge the way of thinking. We has always been doing this way. We heard it millions of times, right? Then if we are not making any ideas to break the thinking sometime, we will never be able to progress, right? And we need to progress on daily basis, right? Second thing, if we are engaging our people in understanding the basic principle of the work, so if they know, for example, a machinery, how the machinery is working, right? What is important for that machinery to be considered in a good shape, right? And generating a good quality product in a safe condition, right? So the more they understand about that, the more they can be engaged in autonomous maintenance. And the earlier they recognize there might be something wrong when it is an early signal, right? And then your efficiency is boosting because you are tackle the problem when it's small or even before it's becoming a problem, right? And this you achieve by continuously challenging and developing the knowledge of the people in the basic of the work, right? And then ask why, right? And seek perfection. Next one is the classic coaching on the rapid PDCA, right? So that is something that I think is more familiar when we talk about this topic, right? So ask questions, don't give solution, listen to what the people is saying. And the role as a leader is to create the environment, so the playground. Let's create the possibility for this team to be empowered to do the experiments. And then, so let's create the condition, let's offer the support for that, making that thing happen, and keep the momentum, be the energy, encourage them, visit them, right? So do small trials and learn about that, right? And the key approach of the coach in this sense, you see it in this image, right? So in this case, the coach and the leader is not in front of the road and is opening the road. It's the opposite. Right, so the learner is in front because the learner is the one who is doing experiments, and the coach is making a step behind and is observing how the learner is making the experiment and is giving guidance from the procedural way how this learner is able to move ahead to reach the target condition, right? So he's guiding from behind, right? And because we don't want to develop followers, right? So we don't want to be in the front and have everybody following what we do. In this case, we are looking for a longer term objective, that is to develop the capability of our people to approach improvement in a structured way and become the protagonist and the owner of the next stage of improvement of the process, right? We are creating people who want to develop better the process, right? And this is then a completely different approach in the way we should coach them. Last but not least, support and recognition, right? So of course, support means give time to the people to run the experiment, create the condition, offer the support of the supporting function, right? So, and then wait, let's say, act with patience, calmness, humility, objectivity, right? So your job as a leader is to create the condition for the experiment to be effective, right? So remove the barriers, right? Let's make sure that the team can make the experiment, right? And then provide feedback and celebrate success, right? If the team is making an experiment and is achieving, let's say, a good result, then let's celebrate, even if it's a small step, because they did the improvement. That's the most important thing, right? And if they did the improvement and the result was not good, then thank them for the improvement and try to discuss about what they learned, right? Because if they were learning something more about the process, that is a success to celebrate. The test was failing, but the team was growing. And this is the job that we are doing. We are developing people, right? And we are developing better processes, right? So these are the behavior, right? And so we spoke about feedback, right? There's another important concept, right, that is coming from a study from Aubrey Daniels, right? So the way we deliver feedback, it can be classified in 3 dimensions: the impact, positive or negative, the timing, immediately or later, and then the certainty, certain or uncertain. So meaning every time or only from one time to another, right? So, and then to get the maximum power of the feedback, what the study is showing is that the most powerful is positive, immediate, certain, negative, immediate, certain. So immediate and certain are the characteristic for a feedback to be effective, right? So we need to give the feedback immediately, as soon as we are getting a coaching session or we are seeing something, we are doing an audit, we need to deliver the feedback, and we need to deliver feedback every time. So the feedback need to be certain. That's the routine. So the feedback need to be a routine, right? And feedback is a part of the coaching, right? Another step more is that just delivering the feedback is then maybe creating a condition that is then having the people doing things or following things because they are required to, right? So it's more of have to behavior, right? Instead, if we are using what we call positive feedback reinforcement, right? So we are talking, giving good appreciations in 4 times more often than when we do a negative appreciations. That will gradually create the behavior of making the people more willing to do things, more proactive in proposing ideas. So it's important the leader is providing positive feedback, right? And we often forget about that. We give negative feedback and we forget to give the positive. It's not so natural, right? And this is something that is a very important element. And let's say every day as leaders, the way we behave, the way we interact with the team are generating consequences, right? So we need to be conscious about that. And the way we are, let's say, behaving in the team is going to generate the behavior of the people working with you, right? So because they are observing, they are looking. So if you are seeing something maybe that should be mentioned, right? If you see a safety risk and you don't act, you walk away, then you are not passing a good message, right? And the team see, okay, yeah, but so he saw and didn't comment, so that's not a problem, right? Then that is not so relevant, right? So you have this responsibility also as leader to be consistent, right? So again, a routine, consistency, repetition, because this is then reinforcing this behavior changes and habit changes, right? So all these things are putting the puzzle together. So then we understood that, let's say, what is making the difference is that leaders acting as coach, following routines with the right behaviors and engaging the teams to do the experiments step by step to improve their processes. And this is a way to combine together the cultural and the operational excellence. So how do we develop these guys, right? So we went for this kind of experiential training approach where we have 70-20-10 lesson learned, right? So we engage the guys in practicing the concept and then becoming aware of it, right? Then continue the practice, becoming able to do it. And then later on, only after a big practice, practice coaching and then be able to teach it, right? So we start with a specific training program that is basically 1 full week. There we go through these leadership processes and leadership behavior, right? We do the explanation and then we do their exercise. We do in the shop floor on the real process, creating a group of participants so they have also the exchange of ideas and the peer-to-peer learning, right? And this is all doing hands-on on a real problem. So we have clear objective to achieve and we do that, right? So we are doing and experimenting these processes and behaviors, receiving the feedback already in the training, right? So that is the first phase, right? And this, as I said, is 1 full week training full time. Then we each person joining the training go back in their own site, right? And we ask them to start leading one activity, right? And receiving some external coaching, right? And then after that, they will continue the practice. Then we will start practicing as coach, receiving some external second coach, and then continue experience with several weeks. They will then start to gradually become more developed as a second coach, and so having less, let's say, support from the external observer, right? And we design even, these are all our different level of certification. So we design a special level of certification that we call it leader gear, and each candidate after the training and after the experiment, they are invited to go through this process. They are running a project, more or less 7-8 months timeline. And again, they are practicing these processes on a real case they are receiving some observation from external coaches. I mean, external meaning external of the plant, but still within, let's say, the EMS organization, right? And then we meet together and we have a review peer-to-peer, and then we have another observation on another process, and then another review. So it's a long journey that is developing more and more the capability to properly run these processes and behavior. And the last point, what is the experience so far, right? So we have been running so far 39 edition of this academy, 458 leaders trained. We started from senior leader of the company. They spent 4 days in a site going through all these processes. And now we have 90% of our plant managers and 75% about our area and supply chain managers certified as coach. We have these routines in place in 77% of our teams in the world. And we have reported more than 700 workshops, right? So it was a game changer, right? Because we are seeing very big benefit in these behaviors and in this engagement. And then now we can say that we start seeing how we can do the small daily sustainable improvement. That would be all on my side, and we'll be happy to hear about some questions.
All right, Sandro, thank you for that presentation. Thank you for going into so much detail about the EMS way. And I think the questions will allow us to explore some of that a little bit more deeply. So I encourage people, please continue putting questions in using the Q&A function. So there's a couple of questions here from Himanshu. I guess first about because I was curious about this too, how would you describe the results of EMS? So for one, Himanshu is asking more specifically, how many sites are now gold or platinum level compared to before?
Okay, in that sense, right? So this year, I think we are going to have 5 or 6 platinum level, and then another 5 or 6 in gold level, right? So that is will be the best year, right? In terms of site certification, right? The thing is that an additional element is that the journey that we saw is not necessarily going only in one direction, right? So you are achieving a very good level, and then maybe you change completely the process, right? Or you have a big turnover, right? You have new products, right? And then, I mean, that site is getting back to an unstable position, right? Because we are making then investment, we have new automation coming, so we have different challenges coming, right? And then this is bringing us back, right? So what we see is that, okay, so we have some regression in some sites, right? But the sites that are reaching more in a sustainable way, the gold and platinum level, are also quite fast in recovering in case of very important changes in the process or in the conditions, right? Because this is just witnessed by an important culture, right? An important people that know how to approach the challenges and the differences, right? So they are well developed in the problem solving. So they are, and we have a big number of people that is able to address problems, right? So then we can multiply the effort, right? And this you achieve only when you are achieving the highest level, right? So, and then if you are achieving and sustaining for 3-4 years, then this is becoming a culture, right? And it's making the things easier, right? Still, challenges are there, right? And one more thing that I was mentioning, to achieve the certification level, we need also to achieve a certain level of KPI and metrics. And so you might have the conditions that I was mentioning, even more plant will have better conditions, right? But then from the KPI perspective, they are not matching the threshold that we have been setting. And over the 20 years, we are continuously adjusting the levels of excellence, because this is promoting and continuously challenging our possibility to get better, right? So the level we are using now are not the levels of 10 years ago, right? Are much more challenging, right?
Yeah. I think the fact that EMS has survived for 20 years is evidence that there's business benefit to doing this. it's probably difficult to gauge what the impact would be, but maybe a more specific question that might be easier to answer would be, the commitment of Electrolux CEOs. I'm guessing over 20 years, there's been more than one CEO. And how is their support?
Yeah, good question. I mean,
yeah.
Actually, they had a very important role, right? Because the originator of the program was actually the CEO and his leadership team, right?
Yeah.
And then, I mean, so we had some, let's say, regular contacts. Of course, as you said, I mean, program is sustaining if we see progress, and then if you see changes in the process, we see then if you have benefits in the safety performance, quality performance, internal and external, and the efficiencies, right? All this is valid, right? But really you need to demonstrate this on regular basis, right? And then let's say it was good for us is that we had actually, you have been having 4 CEOs in 20 years, right?
Okay.
And all of them were giving and continue to keep and maintain the support and then challenging for next level of the evolution, right? And this is also happening with the most recent CEO that is started this year, right? So he's coming from outside, but seeing and recognizing this is the program is a unifying factor across the site he was visiting, but then challenging us to even contribute to do some more evolution of it.
Sure. Okay. And then is it okay with you, Sandro, if we go a couple minutes past the top of the hour? If people need to leave, as a reminder, this is being recorded. So when you get the recording, if you want to jump to the end and hear any Q&A that you miss, that's one way to make sure you're able to hear that. Another question from Himanshu: how do you measure if these different behaviors are actually implemented or followed by leaders?
Good point. Yeah, I mean, in the process of the certification, we are observing the candidate while they are executing, right? So, and we are observing and giving feedback, and then maybe repeating observation and giving feedback. And then we are, let's say, personalized feedback one-to-one, right? That is one thing. Then the other thing is that if the leader is properly acting according to these behaviors, you will see that on how the team is developing, right? You see the improvement activity the team is promoting, right? So we have this rapid PDCA log, we have these A3 documents, right? So you see if this is generating improvement. If the improvement, we see the quality of improvement, if they follow the logic, right? The level of challenges they are addressing, if it's getting more and more consistent, right? Then this is on one of the process, right? Then, I mean, we are, of course, then also in this yearly assessment, we are then looking how is the process of the business plan deployment going, the modifications, the changes, right? We are talking to the people. We make some interview to the people reporting to the leaders, right, to understand the interaction, right? So, of course, you cannot be measuring every single opportunity, right? But let's say this, if you are only seeing something happening in one team and it's only the only case, maybe it's an early stage, right? When you see consistency in the improvement the teams are doing in a good way, it means that they are receiving a good level of coaching, right?
Okay. So another question from Natasha, and I'm going to shift it a little bit. Maybe this is, I think, what she's asking. So to reframe the question a little bit, if you were giving advice to somebody at a company of fairly global scale, multiple sites, multiple countries, if not multiple continents, and we know there are some companies that are either brand new to lean, or they tried it 30 years ago and it didn't become a 20+ year endeavor as it has been at Electrolux. What advice would you have about starting small in a particular? Would you start at a site? Would you start at a business level? Thoughts about then rolling out company wide, based on what you've learned over 20 years, what would you recommend?
I mean, so you need to start on the small scale and understand how it works and understand what does it mean for you. understand which are the skills and competence and efforts that you will need to make it happen. So you need to make this thing if you look ahead, right? So what I was mentioning, in our case, it was designed to be lasting, right? So there was a lot of investment in training and develop our internal resources, right? Then, and that is already a choice, right? Because you might get external support, you get improvement, you have your quick result, and that is maybe something that you need in that moment. So that is, you're not embracing the company to approach the lean, right? So if you are going instead of the long-term point, then, you need to understand by practicing what you need, how far you can go, and what is the engagement that you will need to be able to provide, right? Mm-hmm. And the result that you can get, right? And then this is let's say senior company level decision. Yes, based on what we have been learning from this initial pilot application, we see the potential. We are confident that we can make this investment for not a 1 2 year, but for maybe 10 years to be able to see on a, let's say, full scale significant result on a massive way. So you need a little bit of long term, but if you are let's say a global company, a big scale company, is more easy, these things, right? But you need that senior leader have this vision, right? And maybe had similar experience and are committing to give the support, not just for the first 6 months, mm-hmm. and expect a fantastic result in 6 months, right? Mm-hmm. So that is the logic. So start small, but be deeply experiment these things, right? And then, mm-hmm. in our case, so in the evolution, the business plan deployment was rolled out a little bit later than the early years. And then if we would start now, we could start immediately, right? Because then is the right following, so is the right process to assure that the things that you are then doing in the pilot have a sense, right? And then you are assuring there is a strong connection between the improvement activity and the business need, right? So mm-hmm. if that happens, then it will bring result, and if the results are coming, people will be more happy to repeat it, right, and extend it. Mm-hmm. If they are disconnected, is something else on top to do because they are asking, but it's not seen as something really that is helping me, right? So that is important that the business plan deployment, the Ocean Canary, is embedding these kind of activities inside, right? So that is important.
Okay. Thanks, Sandro. Early on, you talked about goals, and I am happy to see when companies talk about zero as a goal, especially when it comes to safety-related measures like injuries and lost work days. Zero as a defect quality goal. How do you find people react to that? Because I've seen different reactions. Some people find that inspiring. Some people find that to be intimidating. How has that zero conversation gone?
Right. I think the most clear case is the one about safety, right? So company has always been very careful on let's say the conditions of the processes, machinery, whatever, right? But then we were applying, of course, being compliant with all the rules and whatever, but then kind of accepting the fact that in big sites with complex processes, some unsafe event can happen, right? And that was the kind of, seems quite natural probability says that sooner or later will happen, right? And then we enter some training with the DuPont company with the safety behavioral approach, and that was a game changer, right? Because then we started to think that the main responsible for safety is ourselves, and that any accident can be prevented, right? So when you start to have this kind of mindset, they were telling us, we said, this is impossible, right? Then switching the concept from safe conditions or unsafe condition checking and moving to behaviors, which are more often generating the unsafe events, that was a mindset changing. And then we started to think that zero injuries was possible, difficult but possible, while before we were accepting that it can happen, right? Now we changed that also. This I think is more than probably 15 years that we swapped to that kind of logic, and we see sites that have 3 or 4 years without a safety event, right? So it is possible. It's really, it requires continuous engagement, and more people is trained. And then on the other side, it goes hand in hand with the safe condition also coming with good 5S, with the good audit process, with leaders that are active on that, as we were discussing before. So if there is a culture of safety, then it's more likely that you can think to go for a zero accident, right? So that is something that, of course, was an experience we did. And of course, the journey is never finished, right? And then we are trying to kind of challenge with similar concept also the other dimension, right?
Yeah. Okay. And maybe one final question for you, and thanks again for your time here, Sandro. The goal today was to, of course, celebrate, this 20 years of the EMS journey and to share about that. But I did mention up front, you've been a customer of KaiNexus. Could you share just, a little bit at a high level of, when KaiNexus became part of the EMS approach and how you're using our platform?
Right. So, I mean, I think it was 2017, something like that. So I think I was joining a webinar, and the platform was presented, right? And was at the early years, right? And then we said, okay, these things can be interesting. We had some contacts, and then we spoke with what was at that moment the CEO for Europe, and then he was former EMS leader for Europe, and he said, okay, these things has a potential, right? And then he said, go ahead, develop, dig if this is thing can help us, and I will finance that. So I don't want you to bring me the return, so I can give you the possibility for you to try. So let's take some time, go deeper, and then you come back and you tell me if this makes sense or not. And this was important, right? Because we could have the possibility to buy the first licenses and to see, right? And that was the start, right? So, I mean, we were starting from the improvement action tracking, right? And that having a digital system on that was great, right? Because let's say it was offering a kind of a reminder, and I mean, was boosting the possibility to have more action completed on time, simply because, I mean, just we manage 4,000 to 5,000 improvement action in a single site. And then doing all manually on a paperboard or sending the email, all these things was not exactly the most efficient thing, right? So it came to that moment, that's because we were growing and we were facing this problem of quantity, right, to address. And then we saw big advantages on the auditing. I mentioned before this layer audit process. Now we do all the digital auditing with the platform, and that it's very useful because we can do from the mobile, we can associate picture, we can connect the improvement action by nesting them into the audit, right? So that was also another point. And we have one platform where we merge KPIs, team info board, and even the BPD board are managed there. So platform is quite flexible. And then, of course, we have been spreading, and then we are not having it yet in every single site. I think it's, let's say, probably around 60% of the sites. Not all the region have already been using, but we have, let's say, complete coverage in Latin America, almost complete in Europe, and we are now progressively extending to the other sides, right? It requires some effort in learning new things, but also then we see a lot of opportunities in make the process faster and with better control, right? So this is a great advantage, right? Of course, the platform itself is not generating ideas, right? But it's making the things more effectively being managed, right? So then we see that's one of the most important values, and we are then happy to have the solution in place.
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing about that as well, Sandro. So thank you, and thank you to everybody at Electrolux for partnering with KaiNexus and for being a customer. And thank you again for presenting so much with us here today. So again, I want to thank all of our attendees from around the world for being here. Thank you for your questions, and we'll look forward to seeing you here on future webinars. Sandro, grazie mille. And
thanks to you, Mark. Thanks for the opportunity, and then I hope this was giving some hints, right?
Yes.
Thank you.
See. All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye to everybody. Thanks for joining.